This is the third class for the 4th of November, and this is the article of the Hindu. So without wasting any time, let's start our discussion. There is a editorial in the Hindu today where big play does little to arrest the climate change. So this is the article for the GS3 topic environment. So let's discuss this editorial in detail. So what's given in that? Let's read. There is a strong belief in some quarters that the next climate conference, just days away in Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt this year, this is COP27, may not discuss the climate change mitigation, largely on account of the ongoing energy stress in Europe. Okay. So this is the article for the climate change, and in this discussing about the climate conference that about to begin in Egypt, and this is called the COP27 meeting, and they are discussing that they are not ready to discuss the climate change mitigation because nowadays there is an energy stress in Europe. Next line, come here. It is felt that Russia-Ukraine crisis and resulting global energy supply shortages have been dented everyone's ability to reduce emissions. रशिया यूक्रेन क्राइसिस जो हम देख रहे हैं और उसमें जो ग्लोबल एनर्जी सप्लाई की जो शॉर्टेजेस आ रही है उससे क्या हो रहा है, एवरीवंस की जितने भी लोग हैं उनकी एबिलिटी एमिशन को कम करने की वो कम होती जा रही है बिकॉज क्राइसिस है एनर्जी का, तो वो ऑब्वियसली फॉसिल फ्यूल की तरफ जाएंगे ही जाएंगे और उनको यूज़ भी करेंगे. नेक्स्ट, दिस मे बी अ लेजिटिमेट व्यू बट द डिस्कशन ऑन कोल in the United Nations General Assembly in September points to an opposite possibility. Lekin what happens in the United Nations General Assembly? They discuss for the coal and there was a discussion to reduce it, but now and today's time for the meetings to be held in Egypt for the COP27, this is the opposite scenario. Come here. Sorry, the president of the Vanuatu, a small Pacific island, wanted the General Assembly to adopt a universal non-proliferation treaty to ban the use of fossil fuel across the world. What happens? There is a small Pacific island named Vanuatu. What happens there? They want to adopt a universal non-proliferation treaty so that there should be the ban for the fossil fuel across the world. Okay. Usually, such a call by a nation whose contribution to the global energy supplies and the emission is negligible would have gone unnoticed. Obviously, this is a small island country, and various other small island countries, their contribution for the emission of the carbon dioxide and many of the greenhouse gases, their contribution is very less, and if they're demanding such kind of thing, then this thing getting unnoticed. But Vanuatu represent a strong and vocal group of small island developing states whose voice is heard with attention and empathy in the United Nations. So it's a very strong voice of the Vanuatu if is getting attention in the United Nations, more so when it is a matter that will affect the global discourse on a climate change. Next हम discuss करते हैं third para. The small island group has gone around seeking endorsement from various quarters, governments, the corporate world, and the civil society. Interestingly, the mayor of Kolkata, capital of one of the largest coal-producing states in India, has lent his voice of support. And in India also, a mayor of the Kolkata, which is producing the largest coal in India, and there also support for this. Okay. So overall, we have read these 3 paragraphs. What we can understand, this is the editorial for the related to the climate change and the emission nowadays, and what's the meeting coming on, and what's the meeting that held on, and people discussing for reducing the use of fossil fuel, and the contribution of the small island nation, developers, United Nations, and the support of the various countries and all. Now come here. A similar call on the coal use. Vanuatu's place comes in the wake of a similar call for phase out of the coal, which was made last year at the Glasgow Climate Conference. What Vanuatu's want, this is small island countries, they want the phase out of the coal uh, that the people really discussed on the Glasgow climate conference that held earlier. After a strong protest by the Indian interlocutors, the language of the decision at the Glasgow was toned down from the phase out to the phase down. And there was in between Indian interlocutors, and they demanded, instead of being the phase out, there should be the phase down of unabated coal power and inefficient fuel subsidies. तो इन्होंने बोला है कि फेज आउट करने से अच्छा है फेज डाउन करो बहुत सारे जो हमको ज़रूरत नहीं है कुछ इनएफिशिएंट फ्यूल सब्सिडीज़ की या कोल की. When India argued that a phase out was unfair to countries that were still developing, then obviously what happens, this is a general thing that the developed countries, if they're demanding for phasing out the various of the fossil fuel, then obviously it is not fair with those countries, especially the developing ones, which are still growing up and they want to use many of the fossil fuels for developing their infrastructure and many more. So this is the basic point over here. Now there was a consternation among the climate enthusiasts. Okay, given this background, the Alliance of the Small Island State, which is called in short AOSIS, I'm sorry, I'm not well today, may be preparing the ground to make the fossil fuel elimination on a part of the national climate plans at COP27. So this is the basic point of for the prelims and the mains also, that the Alliance of the Small Island State, they are taking they're preparing for elimination of the fossil fuel and for discussing for the thing that in the meeting that is going to be held soon. Okay, different implications. Some people ask why India, which agreed to the phase down in Glasgow, would object to a non-proliferation treaty even when it offers a flexible timeline for the phase down. There is a caution regarding India that India earlier agreed for the phase down, but now it is not supporting for the non-proliferation treaty. What happens next? The reason may have well to do with the fact that a call to end the fossil fuel through a mandate in the United Nations has a very different implication than when it is presented under the United Nations Climate Change Convention. ये इसलिए है बिकॉज कि भी अगर हम कॉल करें टू एंड द फॉसिल फ्यूल थ्रू अ मैंडेट इन यूनाइटेड नेशन तो कुछ अलग ही रिजल्ट आएंगे अगर हम इसको प्रेजेंट करेंगे यूनाइटेड नेशन क्लाइमेट चेंज कन्वेंशन में. A United Nations mandate of this nature is diverse from the legal responsibility of the polluting countries to reduce their emission. And what happens, जैसे कि हम डिस्कस करा था कि अगर ये यूनाइटेड नेशन क्या ही एक अगर आएगा डिसीजन तो क्या होगा, जो पॉल्यूटिंग कंट्रीज स्पेशली द डेवलप्ड वंस एंड उनका लीगल रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी ख़त्म हो जाएगा. तो ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए, इनका लीगल रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी होना चाहिए बिकॉज दे आर कंट्रीब्यूटिंग मोर फॉर पॉल्यूटिंग द वर्ल्ड because they developed earlier and their contribution for the emission is very much far than the developing countries. I'm really sorry, I'm not well today. It also makes no provision for the technological and the financial innovation that are necessary to ensure the transition. And what and really nowadays and the most thing which is really have to point out that technological financial innovation which are really necessary nowadays for such kind of transition that should be discussed. So this is the important point. Now, a few months ago, a similar attempt had been made in the United Nations to treat the matter of climate change as that of the global security and request the United Nations Security Council to resolve it. Okay, this is the important point that United Nations में काफ़ी डिस्कस किया गया था कि क्लाइमेट चेंज को एक ग्लोबल सिक्योरिटी की तरह लिया जाए और यूनाइटेड नेशन सिक्योरिटी काउंसिल से भी रिक्वेस्ट करी गई थी कि उसको रिजॉल्व किया जाए. This was dropped because of the opposition of the most of the global south. We saw in this an attempt to address the climate change not through international cooperation and consensus but by imposing the wish of a select few on another. But it was opposed by most of the global south because ये एक attempt था to address the climate change not through international cooperation but एक consensus के through. ठीक है, okay. लास्ट पेरा में आओ. इसी में coal phase down is not the only way to reduce the global emission. Okay, coal is the mainstay of the primary energy supply in many countries such as India and forms the basic and essential component of their energy system. On the On the other hand, a sustainable share of rising global emission is accounted for by the unsustainable levels of consumption of natural resources and lavish lifestyle led by the consumers in developed. What happens? What is given over here? They are saying that most of the countries, for taking example of the India, in India, most of the things depend on the coal, and still India is a developing country, and coal plays a very important role for many of the things. So, the main thing is that we should use such resources in a sustainable way, like so that we can it can be used by the generations to come. But taking such kind of decision in a very random way is not good. There is a more responsibility of the developed countries to think internationally instead of taking a consensus of the few of the persons, right? Now coming this here we are here. Even in the developing economies, some section of the society are responsible for this lavish and irresponsible behavior. And this is a very simple line, I hope you understand it. A plan to drastically reduce the coal-fired power would in fact do very little to rest of the problem of climate change globally, but may create unsurmountable difficulties in securing the progress of developing economies toward the key sustainable development goals that we have discussed earlier. Now come here. If the transition to a world of lower emission has to be sustainable, it must also be just and equitable. अगर हम ट्रांजिशन कर लेंगे वर्ल्ड का कि हमारा एमिशन कम हो और वो सस्टेनेबल भी हो, तो ये थोड़ा जस्ट होगा और इक्विटेबल होगा सबके लिए, ठीक है? दिस इज द गुड पॉइंट. It must ensure equal access to energy and secure energy supplies to all, not just a few. Very good line. While the developed economies have full access to alternate source of energy because of their strength in terms of technology and resources, the developing nations are handicapped. Obviously, जो developed countries हैं उनके अगर उनको coal भी ना मिले, then still they have so much advance in their technology and various of the resources, then they can sustain. But in developing countries like India, which who are dependent on the coal like fossil fuels, they still will be lag behind. Now here we are reading over here. Therefore, a just transition needs to be built on the promise that green energy and a great green future will be available to all. This is a very good point. If we are taking a transition, then there should be the security and a promise that we are going to in a mode of transition where there is a green energy and green future available to all. It is in this context that the call for the lifestyle for environment is issued by the Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the United Nations Secretary General jointly in India recently. This is a very good point. It can be asked in prelims, and it is very much a good point for the mains answer writing also. Lifestyle for environment issued by the Prime Minister Narendra Modi and United Nations Secretary General jointly in India. Assumes importance. Consumers in countries that consume at an unsustainable pace and contribute to rising emission have a much greater responsibility to clean up the planet and support the growth of green energy. Now we are going to read it. The world today is suffering from the adverse effect of climate change, which have devastated homes and the livelihoods of large population in the various parts of the vulnerable world. This is a very simple line. Addressing these impacts and preparing the world for an uncertain future should be the priority. Okay. Unfortunately for the developing world, the coal question always takes away prime time in such conferences. It is a high time that the building climate resilient infrastructure in the developed and the growing countries is given as much importance as facing an investment in okay. So what's really important that in this particular editorial we have read that using the climate change and using the various fossil fuels and especially the coal in a sustainable manner is very much important, and we should take care more for the developing countries for instead of phasing out videos of the things. It is necessary to phase down slowly and gradually so that there is no any kind of partiality among the developed and the developing countries, because developed countries is still in a very peak stage of their development. They have so much resources in the technology, but developing countries is still lagging behind in various of the things. So that if both the countries using the things in a sustainable manner, and it is a security and promise that if there is a transition, then it would be the green future and greatest future for the all, and it should be just and equitable. This is the main conclusion. So thank you. This is my third video. Slowly and gradually I gain some confidence so that I'm really feeling good that slowly and gradually I'm getting some kind of confidence to let you understand regarding the editorial. So thank you. I hope you like it. So please like, share and subscribe my channel. Thank you.